This week on the 77% Street Debate.
After I completed school, I started looking for jobs, and sometimes I could see a job description. I can do everything on there, and then they're like fließend Deutsch or fluent German.
There is a demand for skilled workers in every field.
You either hear of people or know people who moved abroad and they seem to, life seems to be okay for them. And then you move and that's not the reality.
If I'm to be paid the same salary I'm getting in Germany, in Nigeria, I would gladly move to Nigeria.
Hello and welcome back to the 77% Street Debate. My name is Edith Kimani, and this week we are in unfamiliar territory. We are in the second largest city of Germany, Hamburg. Now, in recent years, it's come to be a home for expats looking for better opportunities abroad. Among those, of course, are Africans. The reasons why they're here, they will be telling us shortly, but also the implications that their absence at home has on their economies there. And we're going to begin with Baka. You're a Nigerian, and you came here in 2020, but you didn't stay very long because you were here for your master's. Went back to Nigeria and then decided to return. Tell me a little bit about that.
I think as someone who has master's, I have better opportunities here in Germany. If I'm to be paid the same salary I'm getting in Germany, in Nigeria, I would gladly move to Nigeria. But because I don't have such opportunities, then I am left with no other option than to move back to Germany and look for a job.
Yeah, but you're not speaking theoretically, because when you moved back to Nigeria, you actually attempted to find a job. How did that work out for you?
Yeah, to be honest, I couldn't get the job I wanted because as someone that studied mathematics, everybody from the community thinks I'm supposed to teach or work somewhere in the banks, which was where I worked before I moved to Germany for my master's. So I had to come back and look for a real job.
Yeah, somebody else who has a similar experience is Precious. He's actually Dr. Precious. Like Abubakar here, you also moved back to Nigeria, hoping to get employment, but you only stayed there for 8 months.
Yes, it was quite challenging. I made a lot of applications to different institutions, companies, universities, and at the end of the day, you get nothing back. Of course, there's the need for people like me back home in Nigeria, but the question is the infrastructure there? So when you have a PhD, like Baka said, you're expected to teach, just lecture, teach, that's all. Research is not a thing, especially in my field in Nigeria. So for me to live out my expectations and utilize my skill to the highest potential, I need to be in a place that has facilities, infrastructure to be able to do the kind of research I do.
Somebody else who definitely needs infrastructure and facilities is Hawa. You are a maritime engineer, the first one I have to admit that I've ever spoken to. And you also tried to get a job in Nigeria, but that didn't go down quite as planned.
Well, the problem is the maritime industry for a female, we are like underrepresented and not recognized globally. We're about less than 2% of seafarers in the world. And then and I went back to Nigeria and I started looking for a job, but it was pretty difficult for me. So many people told me that, okay, you're female. Some said, okay, you're Muslim too, and all of that. And when I eventually got a job, thank God for that, it was pretty hard for me because I had to do, double the effort. I have to put in double the effort to be seen as someone who is capable of carrying out the job.
So we're going to come back to some of the issues that plague your different industries in a short while, but I want us to get grounded in some statistics first. And Roger here actually works with a company that brings workers to Germany, and you tell me it's because somebody was desperately looking for workers.
Yeah, actually somebody in Hamburg, and it was a bus driving company, one of the two largest bus driving companies in Germany, and he's a friend of mine for a long time, and he sort of a jest said, we urgently need 200 people. You have all those contacts. You are such a contact maker. Can't you help us? So this is how it started, like maybe 2 years ago. And I started to go into it beginning of last year. And we started a company. That was in May, went to Kenya together in September. And now the first 5 bus drivers, one group for integration reasons, not to be so lonely, to help each other out, this kind of thing. We'll start in Flensburg, which is even farther up north than Hamburg. And the next 5 will probably come to Hamburg also this year.
So you're still very much in the early days, but somebody might listen to you and say, well, Germany also has an unemployment problem. Why not hire German drivers to drive those buses?
Who said that Germany has an unemployment problem?
Well, statistically, there is a figure there when you look at Germany unemployment.
Yeah, okay. Statistically, there is a figure, but it is very, very low. Now, in Germany, we have the situation that we have 15 million youth between the age of 15 and 24. We never had so few. So there is a demand for skilled workers in every field. We are speaking not only about bus drivers, we're speaking about doctors, lawyers, judges, architects, name it.
Yeah. So these are essentially known as deficit professions, the ones that he's just mentioned, including engineering. And Germany, specifically, according to the latest figures by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, is apparently falling short by 2 million positions. Is that how you felt when you came into this country, Ogenna?
Not really, because there are lots of people in Germany, both indigenes and foreigners who come to Germany to work, and these people don't even find the jobs that we keep hearing in abundance. Although, yes, so many people do find these jobs, but you still find even much more people not finding these jobs. So sometimes they end up either going back home to then look for a job at home, or they home might come back again. So many other people find it a bit difficult to integrate in terms of job hunting for so many reasons. Either the language skill, which of course it's a two-way street. If you are living in a country, you have to speak the language of the country. That's quite understandable, but it becomes a problem when you're told that this job is available in English, but then it's actually
okay. Because I know that the language issue is going to come up again, I want to ask Philip, you're from Ghana. There are no obvious ties between Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Cameroon. So why Germany?
Actually, yeah, for me, it was basically because of the free tuition, the master's degree. So I decided to move to Germany, which was the biggest economy in Europe. So I thought right after school, after being free, I'm going to get a job since it's the biggest economy, get a job, and then basically live a life here in Germany. So
free tuition, you've gotten your second master's now. Has a second promise come to fruition? Do you have a job?
I actually do, but it's on a limited contract. I'm still looking for a permanent job. And again, the language issue comes to play because, this is largely because of me. It's my fault because I was quite complacent because when I came to Germany, almost everything, my studies, I got a student's job, everything was in English. So I was like, okay, how difficult can life get? And after I completed school, I started looking for jobs, and sometimes I could see a job description. I can do everything on there, and then they're like fließend Deutsch or fluent German, which disqualifies me. And yeah, that's basically the problem.
Yeah.
A lot of other African people.
Emanuela, I know that your story is similar. You're from Cameroon, the English-speaking side, and jobs there, not very many, so you can understand why you ended up here. But after 11 years, sprichst du Deutsch? Okay. So tell me about your job search, because you just completed your PhD. How is that job hunt going? Are you finding that, these companies which desperately need skilled workers, are they looking for you?
Okay, so this is a bit tricky because I'm not looking for what they might call in German skilled work. My choice of job, I want to work with people. I don't want to sit behind a computer and maybe do statistics. So I have to talk to people more. And the English options we have, maybe everyone is rushing to get this option too. And okay, maybe location, I don't know where I'm staying in Bonn. So the limitations are also there.
All right. But is it unfair, Abu Bakar, for you as a worker to come into Germany and be expected to learn the language, surely?
Yeah, I think it's fair if you are living in Germany to learn German, but not fair to expect people to be very fluent in a language that they are learning as adults, right? So yeah, I would say to some extent it's fair.
Okay. Where is Befin? Because she's just recently new into the country. I think just 8 months you were. And I know that you told me that your expectation of what the country would be versus what it's turned out to be are two completely different things. Tell me about that.
Yes. So I think because I'm in Germany for my master's, and I think prior to coming, you either hear of people or know people who moved abroad and they seem to, life seems to be okay for them. And you think, if I move abroad, then it's going to be amazing. And then you move and that's not the reality. And so one thing I've come to learn is that, okay, life in Germany is a process. And again, going back to the language thing, and at the core of this process is the language. Because for me personally, it's been limiting in so many things. In day-to-day interaction, that has been limited. In also trying to find just VAC student jobs, that has also been limiting.
Okay, let me come back to Roger, because while we were speaking earlier, you did mention to me that one of the biggest challenges, which I thought was interesting, is that people don't stay. Do you think one of the reasons is just, they don't trust the process?
Well, actually, I cannot speak for the reasons. I just can tell you that our clients or possible clients say this is the greatest challenge. People come and they leave after a year. So the key word here is integration, I think, and language is one thing. But I also believe, like, when I see everybody here around, they come for university or something alone, and they have to find their way. And if they come in winter, that is even worse. And they don't know, because nobody really expects, coming from an African country, that we'll have 4, 5, or 6 months of shitty weather, and I mean shitty weather. And you can explain that to people from Kenya, wherever. I can, as long as I want to. You have to experience it, otherwise you won't believe it. And so I believe what we do is we bring people in bulks, at least 5. And they have to learn to know each other. We try to do the so-called WG in German, like 2 or 3 or 4 people live together so that they can help each other. We also say, okay, there is a community. We are working in Kenya right now solely of Kenyans who can help out, and they are willing to help.
Yes.
This kind of thing is what we believe help for people to stay for a longer period. If you survive in Germany for 1 or 2 years, and maybe you even have family and you can bring it over, I think you will stay for a long time.
Okay.
We are not very joyous people, but we are okay when you get to know us.
I think everyone is laughing because they recognize exactly what you're saying. But because you mentioned the idea of being integrated and perhaps one day hoping to go back home, let me just see by show of hands, how many people here have an agenda to relocate fully back into their motherland in the next, say, 5 years? Wow. 10 years, maybe? Maybe for 10 years. Okay, now, if we listen to President Tinubu's agenda on the youth, he will say that you are front and center and that the country is now ready for you.
Well, that's what they say, but we haven't seen it yet. Although, to be fair, there are people who are finding these jobs. For example, myself, I had a job in Nigeria before I came here. So the truth is, there are people who have these jobs, who are able to find these jobs. It's just that the jobs that are available are not enough for the people that need these jobs.
Okay, but from an ethical point of view, Philip, let me ask you something. Do you feel beholden? Are you responsible for building Ghana?
I mean, I was born a Ghanaian for a reason, I believe. So I have to contribute whatever quota I have to contribute to Ghana to help build it. But currently, I don't see myself having the capacity, the money, the experience to do that. So I would want to get all of these here or somewhere in Europe, developed country, to...
But how does Africa develop if all the skilled people are coming to the developed world?
Yeah, so exactly. Like me, I come to get the knowledge and then go back and then create a business or establish a business and then help the economy grow.
Okay, so you don't feel like you have or you owe your country anything at this point?
At this point, sometimes I try to convince myself I don't owe them anything, but within me, I feel I owe them something.
Okay, so Philip is convincing himself he doesn't owe Ghana anything. Emanuela, do you need to convince yourself that Cameroon doesn't need you?
Actually, I don't need to convince myself, and that takes me because you asked a very interesting question before. If all the skilled workers are here, we're going to develop Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are not the ones to answer that question, unfortunately. So now that we are doing this, I hope the government is watching and they should answer this because we really want to go. I think you've spoken to about 3 people who went back to Nigeria to get jobs and they couldn't. And something could be done about this.
Yeah.
And when people try this, there are a lot of loopholes or there are actually boundaries and limitations that you can't even do this and you have to run back maybe to Germany or where you think it's easier. And this is not just about jobs. We've had people, for example, in Cameroon, who think, okay, if I can't get a job, I can do a business back home. And then they go and the taxes are crazy. And sometimes maybe you have to bribe your way to do a business that is going to benefit your country. And so this is why I say, unfortunately, we might want to think about ourselves because if we all carry ourselves back home because we think we owe our country something and then we have to stay hungry, that's really being, foolish.
Okay. Abu Bakar, I know that you have some very strong opinions about this. Do you think your country has let you down? Are they creating the infrastructure, the frameworks for you to be able to thrive back in Nigeria?
So to be honest, I would say sometimes it's not even that there is no job. Sometimes there is job both for some certain people.
What do you mean?
Like for some people, for people that are connected, for people that know someone who is at the top.
Okay, hold on. This guy just shouted nepotism. I have to come here.
Yeah, I mean, what Abu Bakar said was correct. There might be jobs, but chances are they will just give it to someone who is related to them rather than give it to some set of people who are qualified to do that. And that eventually has like a domino effect, because if you put the wrong person with the wrong skills for a job, then they don't know what to do. They're just taking the salary and not adding value to the society that they ought to.
So has anybody been a victim of this corruption of your own nation, making it impossible for you to work?
I mean, I am a victim,
Oh,
to
wow.
be honest. So I would say me and my friends are victims of this, because back then, for example, in my class, there are people with first class like grades and everything, but they couldn't get job. They ended up teaching, for example. If I were, just like I said, if I were to go back to Nigeria, if I had no connection, I would end up teaching, getting 50 to, let's say, 100 euros a month. A month, exactly. And that is if I have a good, like, school, a private school, or that would pay me that money. And there's nothing wrong with teaching. You could teach only if you are being taken care of, for example. So I think, let me say, everybody in Nigeria, like, I wouldn't say everybody, like, people that are from, like the so background are victims of this, because we have the talent, we have the experience, we can do it, but we will not be given the chance to do it because we don't know somebody at the top.
All right. And Precious, I know that another thing you kept being told is that you're overqualified for the position. And it got me wondering, why not give you something to help you skill and upskill the people who are with you in the industry?
Well, I think that for some companies, when they look at their probably income and look at what they make and then look at the kind of person they want to employ, somehow they may feel intimidated or feel they are doing you a disservice to pay you some peanuts. So somehow they just don't want to give you the jobs.
Okay.
And you find out that some probably companies, institutions in Nigeria, when they want to make this offer for jobs, they even want to go for people who have HNDs and ONDs.
What are those?
So like ordinary national diplomas, rather than go for university graduates. So it's something now that is prevalent in the country.
That sentiment. So with regards to the unemployment situation I can't talk for all of Africa, I can talk for Ghana. There are a lot of very old people who are due for retirement, but because of the benefits that they are getting, they don't want to vacate their position and then let the younger ones come in, because, I mean, there is a lot of corruption, they are getting a lot of monies, and then they don't want to go away for somebody to come. So, I mean, it creates that kind of unemployment, basically.
Okay, so the old guard doesn't want to move. There's nepotism, there's corruption, and the industries are simply not developed. So now you're here, Ogena. How is your life? Would you recommend that somebody move to Germany?
Definitely. Living in Germany for me has been really very rewarding. Rewarding in the sense that I have improved my skills. I have also been able to experience life in a different, from a different perspective. Anyone who wants to or who is able to, because wanting to and being able to are two different things. Moving from your country to another country is expensive. So these people are not necessarily poor people, both intellectually and financially. So it's going to cost a lot of money. So if you can afford it, why not? I personally recommend it.
Okay, speaking of affording, you kept talking about how teachers are paid 100, 200 euros. I want to know how good your life is here in Germany. Wink, wink. How many euros are you getting? I mean, you don't have to tell me the amount. I just want to know how your life is here, economically, socially.
I would say economically, as I said before at the beginning of this interview, if I was to be paid the same amount I'm being paid here in Germany, I would run back to Nigeria today. But unfortunately, it's not possible. And it's not that there are no jobs that pay that amount. There are, but the positions are for some certain people. And socially, speaking for myself, I would say, yeah, I'm grateful, but I would be happier if I'm in Nigeria, because I love Nigeria. I love being around my family. So if I'm in Nigeria, a lot of people in Germany are loyal. A lot of people are depressed. We are happier with our families and we are here. So I would say socially, I would say like not everybody is here is like happy, but like, yeah, there are some deficiencies.
But I mean, you're earning a good income, and I take it from what I'm hearing from you guys, everybody seems to be fairly comfortable. But there are families back home who perhaps depend on you. Do you feel the pressure to provide, now that you've made it, to stretch that euro?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, I don't have much pressure personally. But I think if you ask, most of the people here, they will tell you that they have this obligation to pay what would term as black tax. So you have families, cousins, uncles, aunties that depend on you, because there's this notion that once you leave the shores of Nigeria or any underdeveloped country to come abroad, that you're doing well.
I'm hearing a from the back here. I want to hear from some people at the back. Is it true for you as well?
That doesn't apply to me. I'm not really obligated to send anybody back home. But speaking to a couple of friends, most people get requests from family, cousins, as you mentioned, also some friends, and it all boils down to the fact that people are not really getting any kind of job which would earn them a good amount of money to survive on. It tells you a lot about the economy in Ghana. It tells you a lot about how much people are earning in Ghana and all of that.
Okay, so because I want us to wrap this up, I do want to find out, how do we make this sustainable? Because Europe will continue to need workers, and workers will continue to come to Europe or other developed nations. How do we do that while still taking care of African economies? Any takers? Baka.
So I would say almost everybody you see here is contributing to the Africa's economy, because at the end of the day, we are sending money back home. For example, in Nigeria, I think Nigerians in diaspora alone contributed about $20,000 in 2023 to Nigeria's economy. So we are contributing to Nigeria's economy. And I feel like I would want to contribute more. Maybe some of us feel like we're contributing less because I think Nigeria owes me a lot. So I would want to contribute more in the future. So I would say by investing in your younger ones, trying to create jobs for them, since the government cannot provide the jobs for them. And I think I would say that's all.
All right. Emanuela, let me hear from you, because I know that you told me that you usually advise people, unless you have found some firm ground here, do not attempt to go back home.
Sure. And I do that all the time. Unless you have a job back home, do not go back home. And I will also say that depends on why you came here. Because like I told you before, some people came here for studies and also because they didn't have a job. And if after the studies, you still do not have this job, why are you going back? It makes no difference. So if you have a better job here, stay and be established before you can go back home. But if you have a better job, you can go back home. So I think it's not a one-size-fits for everyone. But again, you have to look at your situation.
So before I close this up, now.
So another way I think can be sustainable could be collaborations. Because while we are here and we are getting skills and getting exposure, there are people who don't want to leave Nigeria or Ghana or wherever. They really want to stay back. They have visions and dreams and goals, and they're working on it. And sometimes they just need some extra push from someone who probably has something extra to add to it. So I would say that collaboration could be key in also creating jobs. You might not want to go back. So it might not necessarily be always to go back home, but sometimes we can contribute without necessarily being back home.
Yeah. So I want to wrap this conversation with Roger, because at the beginning of this conversation, you said that you have some people who you recently brought in. How are they faring along? Do you think this is a model of collaboration that perhaps will sustain this model of skilled workers migration?
Well, I would like to promote an idea, because what I heard here is on the very personal level. So it works all over the world. You have money, you give it to your family if they ask for it. And you try to help people, like you said, who need a little push. But what is it that Africa lacks most economically? Liquidity. Money is shy. And the people who want to give money, invest money into Africa, honest money for honest work, for honest ideas, they fear corruption. People who live here, who have their own income and say, you know what, let's form something, I will contribute to it, but I want you guys also there. Like Nairobi is the startup hub in Kenya, in Africa, in East Africa at least. I don't know about Nigeria. I always heard culture is Nigeria, it's always Nigeria. But these days it seems that Kenya has taken some.
Yes, we have.
Anyways, what you guys can do, I mean, what everybody can do, and that is, I mean, that's what I'm doing, is why don't you create ideas, create funds with friends from Germany, international partnerships, invested there, because they will trust you, because they know you, and they know you are not corrupt. And corruption is the issue that, and Africa's so rich, and it needs everything, and it doesn't have liquidity. So liquidity is the issue, and liquidity must come from private sources, but into business, and then you will give people work, honest work for honest money, and things will start. I'm convinced of that, and I didn't hear that so far, so that's the idea I would promote.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's a fantastic place to wrap it because it's a practical step. You know, we asked at the beginning why so many skilled workers are leaving their mother countries to come and work in Europe. The answers are many. One, Germany needs them, and two, they definitely need the money. How to be sustainable? You've heard all the answers there. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.